You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vet Rehabbers, it's another one of my Behind the Vet Rehab Practice podcasts, and today I chat to vet physio Matthew Scott from the UK. Now, one of the things I love about these interviews is that vet rehabbers share with us their wins and their losses. Now, although it's not great that they made mistakes, when they share them, we get to learn from them. So when we find ourselves in that same position, we have hindsight which we would never have had before. So you get to fast track your success by not repeating the same mistakes that other vet rehabbers made. Matthew chats to me about opening a practice in a pandemic after losing his job when the Animal Health Trust in the UK closed down, how he partnered with a hydrotherapist, found a space, and opened up a clinic. Now, if you have your own practice and you want some tips and advice on how to market your vet rehab practice, we have a great download. It's called 12 Free Ways to Market Your Vet Rehab Practice. Online Pet Health members, you can log into the members portal, go straight to the business basics area and download it there. If you're not a member, you can download this from our free area. Go to www.onlinepethealth.com/12 the number, free ways, and get your copy now. I'll repeat that, www.onlinepethealth.com/12 free ways, and remember 12 is the number, and download your copy straight from the free area. Over to my chat with Matthew. Hey Matthew, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Matthew, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into the field of vet rehab?
Yeah, so I did I was part of the first group to do the undergraduate BSc vet physio degree here in the UK. And then from there, I graduated and started working at the Animal Health Trust, small animal hospital.
So what year did you graduate?
2017.
Okay, all right. And you worked at the Animal Health Trust for a few years and then COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that and how it's sort of changed your path now and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the pandemic was almost really the straw that broke the camel's back for the AHT, because we closed literally as we went into lockdown here in the UK. And I think it basically because of the financial uncertainty around the globe at that time, nobody wanted to buy into it, and so they couldn't salvage it. And then we officially closed it in sort of July last year. And there wasn't, because of the pandemic, there wasn't many people wanting to hire new staff, and especially with vet physio in the UK, there's not many jobs going at all, really. There's not that many paid positions, and so me and the woman who was my line manager, Jo, she also ran she oversaw the hydrotherapy and rehabilitation there. We decided we'd try and find a unit somewhere close by and try and carry on the work we were doing, see if with the local vets will sort of continue to use us and try open our own centre.
Yeah, so it must have been quite stressful, having a position and then going into sort of lockdown and sort of having the uncertainty of knowing sort of where you're going to go. Where is the Animal Health Trust based? Because you're based now in Suffolk, which is just above London. Is the Animal Health Trust in the same area?
Yeah, our new centre is a little bit further east. The Animal Health Trust was near Newmarket, which is about 30 minutes or so from Cambridge.
And what type of patients were you seeing there at the Animal Health Trust?
Predominantly neurology. We had quite a busy neuro service for most of my time there. Until the last year or so, we also had orthopedics, and we were doing toe hips and T-pillows and those sorts of things. And then I'd occasionally get involved with some internal medicine cases if they were in the ICU and recumbent, or the occasional respiratory case from soft tissue.
Okay, and those the clients that are coming there, were they private clients, or was it mainly through because the Animal Health Trust is like a charity, right?
Yeah, they were a charity, although the small animal hospital in some ways worked as its own business, just like most referral hospitals. But we were kind of the clinicians would get to do a lot more research, and so they maybe weren't quite as busy with clinics, or they would have kind of off clinic time. But yeah, so there'd be clients who would be referred as with any other referral hospital. So I'd see some of the inpatients, but then I did also have, along with the hydrotherapy, we had an outpatient clinic as well. So they could be externally referred for that.
Okay. So were you able to take over some of the clients to your new clinic now? And some of the people, the vets that were referring, are they referring to you now? So, I mean, because obviously starting your own new clinic is a massive undertaking, and building up that referrals and those clients, that takes a lot of time. So a lot of those clients come over to you from the Animal Health Trust?
Yeah, we do have quite a few of our old clients, which is really nice. Obviously, I managed to get in touch with some whilst we were thinking of starting it, and it was several months between the AHT closing and us starting up. So I certainly don't blame any of them for trying to find somewhere else to continue their rehab. But we were able to have a few back, which kind of got us off the ground straight away. So we're seeing cases straight away. Certainly I was, because I was doing some mobile work initially before we opened the clinic. And yeah, some of the local vets have continued to refer us, and actually with us moving slightly further east, we've been able to contact a few new vet practices who all seem really keen to help us out as well.
All right, let's backtrack a little bit, right? So you obviously lost your job there at the Animal Health Trust, the two of you. What was the procedure that you went through? So did you now look for premises? Was there an existing premises that you took over, or did you have to completely start from scratch, find a premises, get all the equipment and everything? How did the whole thing from start to finish go?
Yeah, so my business partner Joe did try and look at seeing if we could almost essentially rent the space that we had at the Animal Health Trust, because they had a really nice little building for hydrotherapy. Unfortunately, that was an option, so we ended up looking for a sort of a brand new premises, and ended up with an industrial unit. It's kind of a new complex, which although nice, because it was kind of no one had been in, so there wasn't sort of oil stains or anything from a car garage or anything like that. But it meant that at times the postcode doesn't always work in some people's sat navs, so there's a little bit of a challenge there. But yeah, so we were able to kind of put our own kind of mark on that. We have a little office and a bathroom, and then it was just kind of open plan really. So I was able to. The Animal Health Trust auctioned off quite a lot of their assets, and I was able to get hold of my exercise equipment, which included a couple of kind of smaller electrotherapies like TENS and muscle stim and pulse mag. But I wasn't able to get hold of our laser, unfortunately, so that's still on the list of stuff to get. And in terms of the hydrotherapy, the treadmill was auctioned off, but it was quite an old unit at that time, and it had been sat still for quite some time. So Joe's actually gone ahead and got kind of brand new sort of above ground pool now, and a quite nice new treadmill as well. Okay.
Awesome. So obviously there was a big financial outlay because you had to redesign the inside. Did you put drywalling up and that sort of room that you had? Obviously, did you have to divide that up, or how does it work?
So the only kind of solid, certainly like roofed room is the office and the toilet. The rest of it, we have kind of the similar sort of walls that you might get in a dog kennel, I suppose. They're kind of a white PVC, and that kind of boxes off the physio and exercise area. And then behind me there's the treadmill, and then the tank are kind of, again, sort of, they don't have a top on, but there's walls surrounding the tank, or tanks, and then the pool is to the other side of that.
Okay. So were you a little bit nervous? I mean, obviously starting something, especially in lockdown, what are your feelings? Obviously there was a big financial investment for the two of you.
Yeah, it was obviously in some respects born out of necessity more than anything else, but it was still a bit nerve-wracking to see whether or not we could make it work. And yeah, certainly Joe invested quite a lot into it, and significantly more than me with the hydrotherapy equipment, because they cost a lot more than anything I tend to use. So it was definitely a big step. At that time there was, I suppose, when I agreed to do it with Joe, there was nothing actually else for me at the time that I agreed to do that, and so it was just kind of we'll see how it goes and hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, you didn't really have a choice. It was that or do nothing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's lockdown, so you had to go for it. And so how does so you guys are obviously partners. Do you guys pool everything together and then share the profits, or how does it work? Or are you sort of partners in a building and then you each run your own and see your own patients?
Yeah, so we're partners under kind of the one name and the building, but we run separately to an extent. We take in referrals together, especially if a referring vet's not sure if they want them to go just for hydrotherapy or just for physiotherapy or both. So sometimes we'll sit down with new referrals and discuss it and see who's going to take it in initially. And most of the time, obviously, if the client can they'll do both. But so the clients that Joe sees, they'll kind of pay her, and that will be kind of her money, and then the same for me. So they'll pay into our sort of separate accounts essentially.
Okay, so you invoice them separately and they pay you guys separately, and that's how you work it. And then you have sort of overheads that you share. Yeah.
So I Joe kind of took on the main bulk for the unit, and I pay sort of a portion of that. So we were invoicing them separately. We've actually now moved on to card machine to try and sort of ease that invoicing burden.
And then do you have two different card machines, one for you and one for her, or how does it work?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a receptionist, or do you guys do all the invoicing and all the admin yourselves?
So at the moment we're doing it all ourselves, which obviously is another sort of additional challenge that we weren't having to do at the Animal Health Trust, because we had a really great team of secretaries there. So that in itself has been tricky at times, but and as I'm sure as we build, we might look into bringing someone in, but at the moment it's just about manageable.
And it's baby steps. If I think about my practice, it also just started with me, and then I got an assistant, and then eventually I think I even moved on to like a half-day receptionist, and then in the afternoons we had to do it. The morning was great. But it's such a change, right, from when you're employed to running your own business. You suddenly start to appreciate all the things that used to just happen behind the scenes when you were employed, and all the things that you never had to think about. Like, I was never fortunate enough to be employed as a vet rehab therapist. So I've only really been employed as a vet and then had my own vet rehab clinic. But if I think back, one of the things was that, like if I wanted certain drugs or certain equipment or whatever, then I would just, say to the veterinary nurse or to the receptionist, please can you order this? Please can you order this? And then when you have your own practice, you're like, oh gosh, like I have to pay for that at the end of the month. Am I going to use it enough? Things that, and afterwards I actually felt really bad about it. I used to think about the clinic owners and used to think like, I had no consideration whatsoever for cash flow and how much things cost and stock on the shelves, if it's moving or isn't moving. I just liked it to have it if I needed it. There's a big shift in the appreciation of all the runnings of a practice. And it's baby steps. You're gonna, eventually you'll get busier, and then you'll say, okay, you're gonna get a receptionist, and then you'll eventually have more therapists than a practice manager, and so that's how it goes as you grow. So if you look now, I mean, obviously I know you guys have only been open for a short period of time, but if you think about the location where you are, and you think about the building that you have, is there anything that you want to change, or anything that you want to do differently, apart from Google and Google Maps not picking up the postal code?
Yeah, Google Maps is actually usually okay, but if someone's got an outdated sat nav, or they've not updated it in a while, then it can be a challenge. Where we're situated is quite nice, because we're really quickly accessible off quite a major dual carriageway. I suppose the only thing, if it's not exactly how it would be, obviously, if we started literally from just a plot of land. So there would be things, certainly, I guess, with if we have a very vocal dog, sometimes that can make it quite noisy in the unit, especially because it's quite echoey, being such a high ceiling. But really, that's perhaps the only thing. Maybe if, again, if we had a purpose-built centre, we could maybe have a underground pool, or sorry, ground level pool rather than above ground. But they're not massive issues to us at the moment, and certainly from my point of view, the exercise area that I've got now is kind of a size where I could only have dreamed of at the Animal Health Trust, just because there wasn't the space there, whereas here I've had it bags of space to work with.
Yeah. So is there room in the premises you got now to expand? So let's say you needed another therapist.
No, there's not. Wouldn't necessarily be space to expand to the extent of having kind of two physiotherapists at least running at the same time. But there's other units on the complex. I mean, and if we had to look into that in the future, then perhaps it would maybe have to be a new premises, or different shift patterns or something like that.
Awesome. So what are the plans going forward? I mean, are you thinking about expanding, or you guys sort of plan just for the next few years just to stay how you are?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's relatively short-term planning. I mean, kind of I had maybe perhaps a longer-term plan at the Animal Health Trust, and it didn't end up working out. So right now we're just kind of focusing on how we're doing kind of week to month. And looking ahead to the next year to an extent, but not massively. We're just trying to build on what we've started and see where it takes us. And I suppose if it does get very busy, then we can start to have those conversations then.
Yeah, I think one of the things in this time, sort of COVID time, is you can't really plan.
No.
Nobody can plan, because we just don't know what's going to happen. So you're just taking each day as it comes. So if you now want to go on leave, how's that going to work? Have you taken leave since you've opened?
Not yet, no. And yeah, we haven't really thought too much about it. Usually, if I've maybe wanted a longer weekend, I can maybe just try and book people, or if I needed a day off for whatever reason, I've just kind of booked people around that day rather than on the day, which is again something quite nice about being self-employed in that sense. I think hopefully towards the summer I may be able to have a week off and see my family, because they live several hours away, and I've obviously not been able to see them for quite a while now. So when that time comes, hopefully what I'll try and do is just book before and after it. Usually that's what I did at the Animal Health Trust. I'd use the weeks before and after were incredibly busy trying to fit everyone in.
Yeah.
But usually that was kind of what I did with that.
So talk us through your week. So are you consulting every day? How do you book your appointments at the moment?
At the moment, it's fairly loose. We do have certain hours that we will book people within, but obviously we're not, but certainly not just yet. We're not sort of wall-to-wall clients every single day, but we work Monday to Saturday, really. We do Saturday mornings, and we do some evening appointments as well. And that makes some days, very busy. But then I think with having the 6 days to book people in, it also means some days are a little bit quieter. So I'll maybe have like the afternoon where I can catch up on other bits before the next day.
Okay, so you catch up on all the admin, the invoicing and
Yeah.
banking and all of that.
Yeah.
And how are you marketing the practice at the moment? So, I mean, one of the great things when you start off, if I look back at my journey, I had a little bit more time because, like you say, you have those quieter days. So you're actually able to get some of the admin things done, like marketing. I remember I was able to drive around to practices. And then as you get busier and busier, that becomes difficult because you just don't have the time. You're actually consulting most of the time. And then you start to needing to find other people to help you with that. So you guys are in that stage now where you have time. So how do you spend your time marketing? Do you have sort of an active marketing plan to get new referrals and new clients?
Yeah, we've been fairly proactive ever since we announced that we were going to do this, and we had a really nice response on the different social media platforms, and that's been where we've predominantly advertised. Is we use Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Facebook being kind of our like primary one, and I've just tried to keep up with posting kind of a minimum 2 to 3 times, maybe 4 times a week if I can. But we've directly tried to contact vet practices. Obviously, we can't do any sort of lunch and learn type things at the moment, but there's a couple of practices who have requested it when we are, so that hopefully that will keep things moving. And actually, I think the most significant things that we did was actually more locally was try and get into a couple of local newspapers. We were in 2 kind of separate publications, I suppose, that run different newspapers locally. And when we did the articles for them, that seemed to get a really big response, and we got quite a lot of interest from that, and that was definitely effective. But yeah, other than that, it's been predominantly social media plus doing articles for like Animal Therapy magazine and just trying to push our name out there as much as we can.
That's great that you got into the newspapers. Did you reach out to them to let them know you're opening this new clinic?
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that a lot of people think, that when you're in the newspaper, you sort of sit back and you wait for them to reach out to you. But it's actually for us to tell them what we're doing, right? And even if you've got like an awesome case, I know before when I've had like cases where I've made prosthetics for them or orthotics, and I had sort of a list of people that were interested in anything animal related. They were in newspapers or in the radio, and I would reach out to them and say, hey, I've got this great case, so you're interested? And 9 times out of 10, once you've made that connection with them, they will say, yes, I'm interested, I'm coming. So yeah, that's great that you did that. And I think that, getting in the newspaper, for some reason, when we see people in the newspaper, it makes us think, wow, these people are really important. The newspapers publish something about them, and it really helps with that credibility. And I think especially when you've got a new clinic, that credibility is something that you need because you're not established yet. Your credibility you build over time through your reputation. And so when you've just started out, you need all that credibility building that you can have. Have you managed to contact anyone on radios and try and get onto local radio stations?
No, we've not done radio yet, but that might be actually a good idea to try and do.
Yeah, I'm sure there are lots of sort of pet related, even those very small radio stations, even probably the ones that you don't even listen to. I mean, if I think about the people that interviewed me, there were always these smaller radio stations, but it was amazing how much traction I got from them, because there are certain sort of age populations that listen to certain things, and I remember I was on this one called Health Matters, and it was generally about health, but there was a lady who used to talk about pets, That was her thing, is about pets. And it was often the older generation that was listening to this radio station. I think that it is radio is still sort of more elderly people. But a lot of the elderly people have got really older dogs, you know, and so they were a really large sort of source of clients for me that used to listen to these radio stations. So
I think that's one of the things about relying so much on social media is of a lot of older people on them, or aren't on them quite as much as we might be. And so using things like newspapers or radio stations helps to get them, because like you say, they've got a lot of older dogs themselves.
Yeah, listen, I still don't think there's much benefit in paying for, like, I would never pay for radio or newspaper adverts. But the editorial type things in the newspaper, when they're talking about you and telling a story, I think are really, really great and beneficial, and even magazines. But the social media side too, you know, I think one of the things that is really tricky with social media is that your reach is so tricky. Like nowadays, you just never know who your posts are going to get shown to. So I think that you're right. I think we spend a lot of time on social media, you know, and I think a lot of vet rehabbers allocate a large portion of their marketing on social media. And a lot of them are actually getting a lot of their clients from word of mouth. And I think that that's really something that we should be working on, is word of mouth. How do we get our current clients to tell other people about us? So like doing little workshops and things where you could say to your clients, maybe you do something free and you can tell them that they can gift it to another friend of theirs that has got a arthritic dog, and do something, teach them something, and then just get them into the clinic. I know it's tricky with COVID at the moment. You're busy doing some CPD workshops you've planned at your practice. Now, these are not for pet owners, right? They're for other therapists and for vets and vet nurses.
Yeah. So we've got some coming up in May and July where we're doing practical CPD for other therapists, and then as we kind of ease out of COVID that little bit more, we will be aiming to run kind of like an owner talk or an owner evening, and same for vets as well.
I mean, those inviting the vets around to do CPD, I mean, I'm not sure what it's like in the UK, but here in South Africa we don't have a lot of CPD in vet rehab. And if you can find a company that can sponsor, that is even better, because they can pay for some eats. And you can also invite other people to lecture with you. So like if there is a local surgeon, you could say, let's do something on cranial cruciate ligaments, for example. And then the three of you could talk. So he could talk about the surgery, and you could talk about the physio, and your partner could talk about the hydrotherapy for that specific case. And then, you know, they also pull in all their contacts. So it's a great way for them to invite all their other vet friends to come and have a listen. And I really find that often vets, you know, when they can get that whole sort of holistic approach to a specific condition, then afterwards they feel like, oh, wow, I've really got a grip now on cruciates. So talking about all those different things. So you guys are in a great situation where you've got the people, you just got to make that connection now, find that surgeon, right?
Yeah. And there's quite a few orthopedic surgeons around here, that's a really good idea, because it's something we actually did quite often at the Animal Health Trust. They used to run a free CPD evening every third Thursday of the month or something like that. And I spoke at a few of them, and it was, I organised a CPD day as well for vets and nurses, talking about neurology and rehab and things like that. And it was a really good way of getting that face to face with local vets and getting myself out there, because that was one thing at the Animal Health Trust, because it was actually a much bigger organisation than a lot of people realise. Is our kind of marketing department had to obviously divvy things up between the different departments. You know, we spend a lot of time with our trying to raise the money, and also our genetics and disease surveillance stuff. So we kind of had to fight a little bit to have our side of the hospital advertised. But being self-employed, I've been able to be in complete control, which obviously sometimes has been a bit of a headache because you run out of ideas every now and again. But it's been also quite nice to be able to be in complete control of what I put out there.
Yeah. So is there any part of the running of the practice that you wish that you could delegate to somebody else?
Yeah, I suppose, well, it's starting to ease off a bit now. Like I said, we have the card machines, but certainly the invoicing and just checking that payments have gone through and keeping up to date with all of that. We had, like I say, a really good secretarial team at the Animal Health Trust, and definitely kind of miss them at times. So it would be most of that sort of stuff, I think.
I think also it's so hard to like connect the payments and what we do. Because, that's one thing I loved about having a receptionist. I always used to say people used to say like, oh, how much is that going to cost? Or how can I make the payments and whatever? And I'd just be like, oh no, just speak to so-and-so outside. They deal with all that. I've got nothing to do with that. I just treat the patients. And I love that because that's the tricky part of having your own business, like where you treat the patients and then you're like connect with the owner. And then you have to like take your hat off and put another hat on and be like the finance person now. And then they're like not paying or they're complaining about the payments and it's just awkward, right? So it's so nice when you get to that level where you can just like, okay, somebody else will deal with that. And you give them instruction that they need to get the money, but it's not you the one who's, having the one to try and get it from them and try and organize all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what do you do in your spare time? Do you have any spare time where you're able to do any hobbies?
Yeah, as you can maybe see, I do play guitar, perhaps not as much as I would like to at times. It's the tricky thing about being self-employed is forcing yourself to switch off at times, because there's always little things that I could be doing, whether it's tinkering with the presentation for one of these CPD days or answering an email. So it's sometimes tricky to make yourself switch off and have that downtime with your hobbies.
Yeah, and you have to. You really, really have to. You have to say like, this is my hours that I work, because otherwise it does become more consuming. You're just constantly working. I mean, I think now that I have kids, I have to. But I recall in my early days, being exactly the same. Come home with a laptop and just continue working and weekend working, and I love doing it. So it was easy to do it, but you got to be kind to yourself, because as you get busier and busier, then you start to have the risk of burnout. And I think in our field, it's one of these things that happens and it comes very quickly upon you when you suddenly think, oh, like I'm actually getting burnout now. I need to take a break. It's too much. So it's good to make sure that you have some time for yourself. I know now in lockdown, it's not that easy to be able to go off and do things, although things are looking better for you guys. I think with the vaccination and stuff, it looks like you guys are going to be opening up.
Yes, so far so good. Yeah.
Awesome. And obviously, I'm sure that you're spending some time learning, because I know that you've got one of those never stop learning attitudes. So you actually got your animal physiotherapy degree, but now you're also completing your CCRP.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So where are you in that process?
Waiting for, again, things to open up a little bit more to do the lab days.
Okay.
For that, because I've done all the the online learning, and then we did a couple of Zoom calls with Daryl Millis doing those portions of the lab days. So it's just the practical side of the lab days, and then externship and continuing on with that. And
then exams, and then it's
done.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm going to commend you for, after doing a physiotherapy degree, animal physio degree, to go on to keep studying. I think it's something that we all need to do. Just our field is changing all the time. We're learning new things. So here at Onlinepethealth, we have a never stop learning attitude. It's one of our hashtags we use. So we love to see vet rehabbers that are embracing the never stop learning attitude.
It's definitely useful. I mean, even just being qualified since 2017, there's stuff that changed even just in that short period of time. So
I know. And, I think one of the things is that, we're really trying to encourage research. And the more research there is in this field, the faster it's going to grow. I did my CCRP in 2005. And things have changed so much since then. There's so much. But I love it. I love learning and learning new things. Matthew, it's been awesome chatting to you. Thanks so much for sharing your journey with us. We look forward to seeing what happens in the future, and good luck with the new clinic. I'm sure it's going to go from strength to strength.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been great.
Awesome, Matthew. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. And please, if you get a moment, head over to Stitcher or iTunes and leave me a review. It's a really lonely job being a podcaster, and so the only time I get to hear from you or know that you're out there is when I get a review. And know that I read every single one of your reviews. So to those of you that have left reviews, I want to say a very, very big thank you. Every time we get a review, it really helps to get the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast out there to all the vet rehabbers all over the world. All right, vet rehabbers, so if you are looking for more continuing education in the field of veterinary rehabilitation, head over to onlinepethealth.com. Go be awesome, guys.